I am trying to change the color of my light there. Hello, that's where that comes from. Why not have a random yellow light in the back, you know? What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to talk about what to do if you get bored while seeing your clients. It is a very common experience. I would argue a universal experience. Even if you love your job and most of the time you're not bored, at some point, you're gonna get bored in session eventually. It's just part of being a person. And for some folks, they might be feeling bored often, and some folks might be feeling bored most of the time. So in today's episode, we're gonna talk about all the reasons, at least all the ones I could think of, for why a therapist might be getting bored in session with a client, and I'll offer some tips, some solutions, things to try so that hopefully you can feel equipped to figure out why you're feeling so bored and what to do about it. Now, before I get into some of those reasons why a therapist might feel bored with their clients, I wanna address a couple things first. First of all, an earlier version of Marie used to think that if I ever felt bored for even a second of a therapy session, that I was somehow failing as a therapist. I was doing something wrong. Snap out of it, Marie. Look alive. This is fascinating. This is fascinating. So if you're prone to this sort of self-judgment when you feel bored, like I used to be prone to, let me encourage you to shift your boredom as just a little flag. It's not to be ignored. We definitely want to take a closer look at it, but it's not a reason to judge yourself. Your boredom is signaling something, and it's more helpful to be curious about it. Oh, I just started zoning out again. That's the second time this session. I wonder what's happening there. Now, sometimes when we get bored in session, it's something about us that's going on. Sometimes when we get bored in session, it's something about whatever's happening with our client that's going on. And sometimes it's some mixture of both. First, let's take a look at some of the things that we bring to the table that could be contributing to the boredom. I'd start by asking about your physical care. Like, think about things like your sleep and your circadian rhythm. Are you seeing clients like right during that afternoon lull when your body kind of wants a nap? Or are you regularly only getting 5 hours of sleep per night? I'd also ask questions about how much you're putting your body through in your work day and your work week. Like, how many clients are you seeing per week? How many clients are you seeing per day? How many clients are you seeing back to back? Are your breaks sufficient throughout your week and throughout your days in order to sustain your energy levels? Another reason therapists could get bored is because of countertransference. Like, is this not the Captain Obvious answer that I think most people would give of like, oh no, there's something going on with me personally? Though I don't think the majority of reasons why a therapist gets bored is because of countertransference, it is certainly worth evaluating, and definitely sometimes it really is a countertransference. If you're ever unsure about whether countertransference might be at play when you feel bored, this is definitely a great opportunity to consult with a trusted colleague. Another potential reason why you might be bored is if you kind of lost the plot. Sometimes therapy can get a bit stagnant. We sort of lose track of what a client's treatment goals are, and then therapy sessions kind of lose their sense of direction because we're not even totally sure where it is that we're going. If this has happened for you with your client, then I definitely go back, revisit their treatment plan, check in, like, is this the treatment plan that I've been working on with this client? Maybe you just need to kind of regroup your direction and come back to that plan. And if it seems like the treatment plan needs some adjusting, then definitely bring it up with your client. Make any tweaks that you want to so that you feel like you have an achievable treatment plan that you can keep working towards. Okay, so far we've been talking mostly about things that might be going on within ourselves or our approach with our clients. Now let's talk about some of the client-related reasons why we might be getting bored. One reason we can get bored because of our clients is if they're not telling us the whole story, or maybe they're focusing a lot of their energy on some sort of side tangent rather than kind of the core of what's really happening or what you decided to focus on together. And I've been there before. I know when this happens, the temptation is to either just kind of stick with whatever they're bringing up and kind of dive into it as though it needs to become the focus, or we might enter a power struggle and try to strong arm them into focusing on the thing that we really wanted to focus on, right? We might be focusing on something that's not really what they were looking for help with. And if we can just notice out loud that that seems to keep happening, what should we do about that, or what's really going on here? Then you can address whatever's keeping that from being the kind of front and center topic that you look at. Another reason we can get bored is, especially with long-term clients, we can see them loop through the same cycle and pattern over and over again. One example of this dynamic that I see often is when somebody says they want to end a relationship with a partner or even just a family member or loved one, and then they continue to just keep going back over and over. I think probably the best solution for this is to bring it up with your client when you see that the loop is happening and reassess if you need to change your approach. You might say something to your client like, hey, you came in to work on this, and I'm noticing we've been working on it for a little while, and this issue seems to keep cycling for you or keep coming up for you, or it's difficult to implement. And so I'm wondering if maybe it might make sense for us to shift our approach here. Kind of in a similar vein, another reason why we might get bored is we have clients who like to perseverate on telling the same story over and over and over. When this happens with clients, I find it most helpful to check in on what might be going on that they're telling this story again and again. You could say something like, hey, I've noticed that's actually not the first time you shared that story. I've heard it a few times now, so that tells me there's something important going on with that story that it's sticking in your mind. Can you tell me more about, what's going on for you when you end up sharing the story again? It might have some sort of secondary gain, so to speak, by retelling the story other than just like, I'm telling my therapist what happened. And of course, another reason why we can become bored in session is because our clients aren't really connected to themselves, and therefore they're disconnected from whatever they're talking about. So that creates this natural kind of parallel process where your client is kind of like, yeah, I'm not really here right now. And your body responds with boredom, which is like saying, I'm not really here right now either. Sometimes our client is disconnected from themselves because there's something about the context, the topic, that is kind of dissociative in nature, particularly if there's some kind of trauma or something like that they're focusing on, and then they disconnect as a way of coping. And for some clients, that disconnection is more pervasive. They're kind of disconnected from themselves all the time. So a lot of these examples I've named so far about reasons why we might be getting bored in session are kind of specific to a particular moment. But for some folks, we're feeling bored kind of a lot, like kind of all the time, in which case I think we might want to take a different approach. If you're in the situation where you're feeling bored most of the time or even all the time that you're meeting with your therapy clients, then I think it's a good time to evaluate whether there might be some career-related reasons behind your boredom. Now, please don't take that to mean that I think anyone who's bored often with their clients should quit being a therapist. That is not what I mean at all. But as I talk with therapists, I do observe that it's quite common for folks to just be working in a particular context that isn't the best fit for them, when maybe a different context would work much better, even still with doing therapy work. So if you're feeling bored most of the time or all the time, I would just really do a deep dive evaluation of your current career setup, just to see what could be contributing to your boredom. So if you are feeling bored with clients, here's a kind of like triage process to go through. You can kind of scale it up appropriately as it starts becoming a bigger and bigger thing. I don't know what y'all are going to think about this, but for me, if I get bored just one time with a particular client, I kind of give myself a free pass. Like, okay, I just got bored one time. This is the first time this has ever happened with this client, and I'm human. It happens. I'm going to come back now and let's see if I have issues staying focused and attending to my client's needs. If you notice that the boredom comes up twice in one session or maybe in back-to-back sessions with the same client, then I would check in, like just a little silent internal check-in. Like, I got bored twice back-to-back with this client. I wonder what could be going on there. Could there be anything that's right in front of me right now that I can see that's contributing to that boredom? If you can, make any adjustments that are within your reasonable power, and then see if that makes changes for the next time. If you're not able to catch anything going on personally contributing to things, or you see personal things that maybe aren't really in your perceived power to control that might be contributing, that's a good time to check in with colleagues. If in that process you're not finding anything particularly personally related contributing to your boredom, then it could be a good time to bring it up with your clients, especially if now it's coming up not just twice, but like repeatedly. It's a pattern that you're feeling bored. Like, hey, I've noticed ever since, we started addressing this topic, there's some moments in session where it's a little bit harder to connect with what you're bringing up. Like, are you noticing that too? Is that just me? Maybe I'm missing something. And whatever you do, I strongly urge you not to let the boredom build up. You know, small changes early on are much easier to make than big changes later on where you have to like significantly course correct because you just stayed on this one path for so long. And my last tip, for those who can access it, if you're feeling bored, not just with one client, but like some boredom in general with your work, it's never a bad idea to take a break if you can access it. Take a vacation, take a week off. You don't even have to travel anywhere. Just take some time off from seeing your therapy clients. See how it feels to have that time off, and then see how it feels to come back. Are you dreading coming back? And to me, that would start flagging to check for things like burnout or the beginnings of burnout, which can happen if we don't address some of our needs and we kind of keep pushing through when our body is saying we're seeing too many clients or this isn't working for us, and we keep pushing anyway. It's going to eventually lead to burnout. And so that is something I would definitely check for if that's happening. Well, I hope you found this helpful. Whenever I make a list of things in an episode, I always feel self-conscious knowing I did not cover everything on the list as much as I tried. So feel free to add to the list in the comments below of reasons why you've noticed for why you might feel bored, and if there's any potential ways to address it in a healthy way. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this episode. TherapyNotes helps with all of your practice management needs, from scheduling to notes to billing. They have a HIPAA-secure telehealth platform for all users and so much more. If you'd like to check out TherapyNotes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you're feeling bored, whether sometimes or all the time in sessions, then I hope this helps you feel supported, and also that you feel like you can release any judgment you might have on yourself for it. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.